You have been taught a great lie. You have been made to believe that the emptiness you feel, the exhaustion that weighs upon you, is a sign of your failure. You are ready to give up because you have been fighting the world, and the world has won. But what if I were to tell you that the battle itself is the illusion? That the peace you are desperately seeking is not something to be found, but a presence to be recognized? What you are about to hear will not ask you to try harder. It will not offer you another temporary fix for a permanent truth. It will require you to turn away from the noise, to be still, and to listen for something you have forgotten, yet has never, for a single moment, forgotten you. Stay, and you will discover what has been waiting for you all along. You have been conditioned to see your life as a series of external conflicts to be won or lost. A demanding job, a difficult relationship, a lack of resources, a body that fails you. These present themselves as enemies on a battlefield, and you have been given the sole responsibility of a soldier, armed only with your own willpower and cunning. You strategize, you push, you strive, you resist. And when you are exhausted, when the outer world does not yield to your efforts, you conclude that you are not strong enough, not good enough, and the thought of surrender begins to whisper. This is the great deception. The problem is not that you are losing the battle. The problem is that you are fighting a battle that does not, in ultimate reality, exist. Consider the simple, daily torment of financial worry. You lie awake at night, your mind racing with calculations, with fears of what might happen if a payment is missed or an unexpected expense arises. The battle seems entirely real. The numbers in the bank statement are real. The bill is real. And so you muster your forces, you work longer hours, you cut back, you fret, and you plan. All of your energy, all of your consciousness is poured into this external conflict. And yet, the anxiety does not leave. It may subside for a moment when a check arrives, but soon it returns because the battlefield remains. You have been treating the symptom, the outer form, without ever questioning the reality of the battlefield itself. You have accepted without inquiry that your security and your peace depend entirely upon your ability to manipulate and control these external conditions. Now, shift your gaze for a moment to a different kind of experience. Recall a time when you were faced with a problem that seemed insurmountable. You wrestled with it, you turned it over and over in your mind, and you found no solution. Then, in a moment of exhaustion, you truly let it go. Perhaps you went for a walk, or you fell asleep, or you became absorbed in a simple, mundane task. And in that moment of release, that moment when you ceased your mental fighting, an answer came. It did not come from your frantic calculations. It came as a quiet, clear thought, an intuition, a sudden knowing that felt as if it were given to you. Where did it come from? It came from a dimension of consciousness that is not engaged in the battle. It came from a peace that was already present, waiting beneath the noise of your struggle. This is the profound secret. The circumstances of your life, The forms and figures of your challenges are not the ultimate reality. They are the surface waves on a vast and silent ocean. Your error has been to believe that the waves are all there is, and that your entire existence must be spent in either riding them or fighting them. You have identified yourself entirely with the soldier on the battlefield, forgetting the king who resides in the impregnable citadel of your own being. The fatigue, the despair, the desire to give up, these are not signs of a weak soldier. They are the inevitable symptoms of an identity misplaced. When you are consumed by a conflict with another person, what is really happening? Your thoughts are filled with their words, their actions, their injustices. Your entire sense of self becomes a reaction to them. You are hurt, you are angry, you are defensive. You are, in effect, allowing that person to dictate the state of your inner world. You have given them the keys to your kingdom. You are fighting a battle on a piece of land that does not belong to you, all the while leaving your own inner gates unguarded and your true throne empty. The conflict seems so real, so urgent. But the only thing that is ultimately real is the peace you have abandoned within yourself. The other person, their actions, their opinions, these are the waves. Your reactive mind, caught in the storm, is also a wave. But you are the ocean, silent, deep, and unmoved by the tempest on its surface. This does not mean a passive acceptance of negativity or injustice in the outer world. It means a radical shift in the source of your action. Right action, powerful and effective action, does not arise from a mind at war. It arises from a mind at peace. When you cease to pour all your energy into fighting the shadow, you have energy available to turn toward the light. When you withdraw your faith from the problem, you make room for the solution to reveal itself. The man who stops struggling in the quicksand begins to float. The first step, then, is not to change the world, but to change your allegiance. It is to turn your attention away from the endless drama of the battlefield and to begin, however feebly at first, to listen for the silence that exists behind it. This turning within is not an escape from life. It is the only way to engage with life from a position of actual power, from the unshakable ground of your own being. This turning within is not a retreat into nothingness, but an arrival at everything. You are not seeking to create a new state of mind, but to uncover the one that has always been there, buried beneath the layers of worry and reaction. We call this the inner kingdom of peace, not because it is a distant castle to be reached after a long journey, but because it is the very ground upon which you are standing right now. You have merely been looking at the storm clouds overhead and have forgotten the solid earth beneath your feet. This kingdom is not a place of escape from your problems. It is the dimension from which your problems can be met, not as overwhelming threats, but as opportunities for a deeper recognition of this abiding presence. Consider the common experience of being stuck in traffic. The immediate reaction is one of frustration, tension, and impatience. The mind screams against the circumstance. It calculates the time being wasted. It rages at the other drivers. It projects a negative outcome for the entire day. This is the voice of the outer battlefield, and it feels utterly justified. But now, imagine a different possibility. Imagine that in the midst of that same traffic jam, you consciously choose to stop fighting the reality of the situation. You cannot move the cars. You cannot make time slow down. The battle is lost before it begins. So you release the tension in your shoulders. You take a deep breath, not as a technique, but as a sincere surrender. And in that moment, you might notice something. You might notice the pattern of rain on your windshield, or a piece of music on the radio you had not truly been hearing. The world has not changed. The cars are still stationary, but something within you has shifted. A quietness has descended. This is not a state you created. It is a state you allowed. You stepped out of the battlefield and into the kingdom. The circumstance became a frame for a moment of peace rather than a trigger for war. This kingdom is not conditional. It does not appear only when the traffic clears or when the bank account is full. Its nature is unconditional peace, and it is available in the doctor's waiting room, just as it is in the quiet of your own home. The challenge is that we have trained ourselves to look for peace in the resolution of our problems. We tell ourselves, I will be at peace when this project is finished, or I will be happy when that person changes. This is the fundamental error that keeps us in bondage. It is like a man standing in a lush garden, dying of thirst, because he believes he can only drink from a specific, ornate fountain in the corner, all the while ignoring the rain that is falling freely all around him. The peace you seek is not contingent upon the rearrangement of your life's furniture. It is the very atmosphere of your true self. How then do we abide here? It begins with a simple moment, by moment noticing. When anxiety about a future meeting arises, instead of following the chain of fearful thoughts, you simply acknowledge, this is anxiety. You do not fight it. You do not try to mentally solve the meeting. You just see the feeling as a weather pattern in the outer world of your mind. And in that simple, non-resistant seeing, a space opens up. You are the one who is aware of the anxiety. That which is aware is not itself anxious. That awareness is a citizen of the inner kingdom. It is calm, clear, and untouched by the content of your thoughts. Every moment of irritation, every flash of fear, every surge of lack is an invitation to remember this. The feeling is not a signal to start a war. It is a reminder to return to the throne of your own awareness. This is the great paradox that the mind cannot understand. By ceasing to seek peace as an outcome, you find it as your origin. By no longer demanding that life be different, you discover a serenity that can handle any life. The situation may still require action. You will still need to drive the car, attend the meeting, address the problem, but the action will now flow from a center of stillness. It will be intelligent, appropriate, and free from the desperation of the ego. You will act not because you are trying to force a result to make you happy, but because the action is the natural, spontaneous expression of the peace you already are. The world continues to turn with all its challenges and complexities, but you are no longer turning with it in a state of turmoil. You are the still, silent center of the wheel, the unshaken sovereign in the inner kingdom. To be the still, silent center of the wheel requires a radical and often misunderstood action, the letting go of personal power. This is the great stumbling block for the intellect, for it sounds like a surrender to weakness, an admission of defeat. Yet it is the very gateway to a power so immense that the personal will you now cling to is but a shadow in comparison. You have been trying to move the world with a lever that is far too short. You stand on the battlefield, straining with all your might, believing that a little more effort, a little more strategy, a little more control will finally bring the victory you crave. This is the illusion of personal power. It is the belief that you, as a separate entity, can and must orchestrate the universe to find peace. Consider the simple act of trying to fall asleep. You lay in the dark, and your mind dictates, you must sleep now. You have an important day tomorrow. You need 8 hours. So you try. You force your eyes to stay shut. You attempt to clear your mind. You become anxious about the passing minutes. The more you strive for sleep, the more it eludes you. Your personal will, your desire to control the very state of unconsciousness, is the very force that prevents it from happening. It is only when you finally give up, when you release the effort and sink into the pillow with a genuine, I don't care if I sleep or not, that the natural, effortless process of sleep can take over. The power to sleep was never in your personal command. It was in your surrender to a deeper, autonomic intelligence. This is a perfect metaphor for the entirety of life. The peace, the guidance, the supply you seek operates on the same principle. It cannot be commanded, it can only be allowed. This letting go is not passivity. It is not about ceasing to act. It is about ceasing to act from the cramped and fearful center of the personal self. Think of a gardener. A gardener does not make the seeds grow. He does not strain and fret over a seedling, pulling it upward with his hands. His role is one of intelligent cooperation. He prepares the soil, he plants the seed, he provides water, and he removes the weeds. But the actual miracle of life, the mysterious force that causes the shoot to break through the soil and reach for the sun, is something he can only stand in awe of. He trusts it. He works with it. He does not attempt to become the life force itself. Your life is this garden. Your personal will is meant to be the gardener, a cooperative agent, not the sun and the rain. You have been exhausting yourself trying to be the source of the growth rather than the tender of the field. Now, apply this to a profound human struggle, the desire to change a deeply ingrained habit, perhaps a pattern of reactive anger or chronic worry. You have likely tried to use personal willpower to defeat it. You have sworn to yourself, I will not get angry. I will not worry. And for a time, it may seem to work. But the effort is immense, and the underlying tension remains, often erupting with even greater force later. This is because you are fighting a shadow with a shadow. The anger, the worry, and the personal will battling against them are all products of the same surface, level mind. It is a civil war within the ego. Letting go of personal power in this context means stopping the civil war. It means, in a moment of trigger, ceasing to fight the feeling. Instead, you turn your attention away from the content of the anger and toward the awareness, that is, witnessing the anger. You are not trying to change anything. You are simply being the silent, spacious awareness in which the feeling is arising. In that shift of allegiance, something miraculous occurs. The feeling, no longer fed by the energy of your resistance, begins to lose its power. It arises, it is seen, and it passes away like a cloud moving through the vast sky of your awareness. The change that happens then is not one you manufactured, it is one that happened through you as a natural consequence of abiding in a deeper reality. This is the great secret. The power that governs the universe, that orchestrates the galaxies and causes the heart to beat, is not against you. It is not withholding. It is a loving, intelligent, and omnipresent force that is your very own being. Your only task is to unclench your fists, to release the white, knuckled grip on the steering wheel of your life, and to allow this infinite current to flow through you. It will guide your steps. It will provide the answers. It will handle the circumstances. But it cannot do so while you are insisting on being the solitary power. You must step aside, not into nothingness, but into the everythingness of the divine. The peace you felt in the traffic jam, the answer that came when you released the problem, the sleep that descended when you stopped trying. These were not lucky breaks. They were fleeting moments of grace. Glimpses of what is possible when the personal will seizes its tyranny and allows the government to be upon his shoulders. This conscious stepping aside is not an act of reaching for something new, but of becoming aware of a presence that has always been the very source of your being. We call this the unseen sustaining presence. For it is the invisible substance, the silent intelligence, the animating force that undergirds all of existence, and it is as present and active in your life as the air in your lungs. You are not being asked to believe in a distant God, but to become aware of the divine current that is the actual life of your life, the actual mind of your mind. You have been like a fish swimming frantically in search of water, unaware that it has been immersed in its sustaining element from the first moment of its existence. Your feeling of lack, your exhaustion, your fear, these are the sensations of the fish momentarily believing it is separate from the ocean. Consider the simple miracle of inspiration. A writer sits before a blank page, her personal mind barren of ideas. She strains, she thinks, she forces words that feel hollow. This is the struggle of the personal will. Then, in a moment of exhaustion, she gives up. She looks out the window, she ceases her striving. And then, from nowhere, a thought arrives. A sentence forms. An entire paragraph flows effortlessly onto the page. Where did it come from? It was given. It came from a depth of intelligence and creativity that far surpassed her personal, struggling mind. This is not a mystical exception. It is the fundamental rule of how this presence operates. It is the source of every genuine insight, every solution that arrives as a eureka, every moment of unexpected grace. It is the unseen, sustaining presence, and it is ceaselessly offering its bounty, waiting only for the claimer of the personal self to quiet enough for it to be received. This presence is not merely for moments of creative work. It is the very foundation of your practical survival. Think of your body. You do not consciously command your heart to beat. You do not will your liver to detoxify your blood or your immune system to marshal its defenses against a pathogen. A vast, intelligent, unseen activity is underway at every moment, sustaining the intricate organism that you call you. You take this for granted, yet it is the most profound evidence of a sustaining power that operates independently of your personal thoughts or worries. Now, extend this understanding. The same intelligence that heals a cut on your finger, that digests your food, is the same intelligence that can orchestrate the circumstances of your life, that can provide the necessary resources, that can open the doors that seem locked. Your worry about tomorrow is as futile as your liver holding a committee meeting to decide how to process a nutrient. The work is already being done by a wisdom far beyond the comprehension of the committee. To rely on this presence is to shift the entire basis of your life from self-sufficiency to God-sufficiency. This is not a vague spiritual concept. It is a practical reorientation. Imagine you are facing a difficult conversation. The old way, the way of personal power, is to rehearse your lines, to anticipate the other person's arguments, to build your defenses, to try and control the outcome. This creates tension and fear. The new way is to go into that conversation having first consciously surrendered the need to control it. You silently acknowledge, I of my own self can do nothing, but the presence within me, the very spirit of truth, will give me the words to speak. This is not a mantra to be repeated superstitiously. It is an act of inner alignment. You are stepping aside as the primary actor and becoming a transparency through which this higher intelligence can operate. The words that then come may surprise you. They may be wiser, more compassionate, and more effective than anything your personal mind could have concocted in its state of anxiety. You become a conduit for a power that is not your own, yet is your truest self. This is how you live from the answered prayer. The answered prayer is not a future event where a distant God finally grants your request. The answered prayer is the conscious awareness of this sustaining presence itself. When you are aware of the ocean, you are no longer afraid of thirst. Your specific needs for supply, for healing, for right relationship are but the individual waves. When you abide in the awareness of the ocean, the waves are met not from a place of lack, but from a place of infinite resource. The problem is solved not because you wrestled it to the ground, but because you shifted your identity from the one who was troubled by the wave to the one who is the ocean itself. The circumstance may change, or it may not, but your experience of it will be transformed because you will know yourself to be upheld by an unseen, sustaining presence that can never be threatened, diminished, or taken from you. This conscious abiding is not a passive state of blankness, but an active and cultivated practice of inner listening. It is the deliberate tuning of your attention away from the static of the world and toward the silent broadcast of the unseen. You have spent a lifetime training your ears to hear the shouts of lack, the arguments of fear, and the clamor of desire. Now, you must train a finer ear, one that can perceive the soundless sound, the wordless communication that is the native language of your true being. This is not listening for a voice, but for a knowing. It is not waiting for an answer, but for a presence that is itself the answer. The practice of inner listening is the art of becoming still enough to hear the music of the sphere you inhabit, to feel the magnetic pull of the divine current as it guides you from within. Think of a time you walked into a room where an argument had just taken place. No one is speaking. The furniture is undisturbed. Yet, you feel the tension immediately. It is a palpable energy you perceive without the use of your physical senses. This is a crude analogy for the faculty you are now being called to develop. You are learning to sense the atmosphere of the spirit. Or consider a master musician tuning a violin. The room may be filled with noise, but she ignores it all, focusing her entire being on the resonance of the string, adjusting it until it aligns with a perfect, unseen pitch. Your mind, in its natural state, is that string meant to be tuned to the perfect pitch of the divine. The practice of inner listening is this process of tuning, of letting the dissonance of your personal thoughts fall away until you vibrate in harmony with a higher frequency. This requires creating pockets of conscious silence in your day. It is not about adding another burdensome task to your list, but about inserting moments of pure, undirected attention into the spaces between your activities. It can be as simple as this. Before you reach for your phone upon waking, you grant yourself 60 seconds of simply being. You do not try to think of God. You do not recite affirmations. You merely become still and listen. You might focus on the sensation of your breath, not to control it, but simply to feel its rhythm, a rhythm you did not create. In that simple act, you are turning down the volume on the outer world. You are, for a moment, ceasing to transmit your own signals and switching your receiver to on. At first, it may seem like you are listening to nothing. You will be met with a parade of thoughts about your day, your worries, your memories. Do not fight them. See them as static on the radio dial. Acknowledge them, and gently, without force, return your attention to the silence behind them. You are not listening for content. You are listening for context. The vast, silent context in which all content appears and disappears. Then, you take this practice into the flow of your life. You are in a stressful meeting and you feel the familiar surge of anxiety. Instead of being swept away by the current of the conversation, you, for one split second, drop inward. You feel your feet on the floor. You become aware of the space around you. You listen not to the words being spoken, but to the silence that holds the words. In that moment, you have connected to a deeper anchor. The anxiety may not vanish, but it now exists within a much larger field of awareness, and its power to control you is diminished. You are no longer just a participant in the meeting. You are also the silent, listening presence witnessing it. This inner listening is the mechanism through which specific guidance is received. You have a decision to make. The old way is to make lists of pros and cons, to seek advice, to fret and debate within your own mind. The new way is to take the decision into the silence. You present the question not with desperation, but with a quiet trust. And then you listen. You do not listen for a thundering voice from heaven. You listen for a gentle inclination, a spontaneous feeling of rightness, an intuitive nudge. It may come as a sudden clarity as you are walking down the street, a feeling of peace about one option and unease about another, or the unexpected arrival of information that illuminates your path. This is not coincidence. This is the natural consequence of having tuned your instrument to the frequency of the source. The answer was always there, broadcast on a channel you were previously too busy to access. The practice of inner listening is the deliberate, patient, and faithful act of turning the dial to that channel and remaining there until the static of the world fades and the signal of the Spirit comes through with perfect, life-giving clarity. The ultimate fulfillment of this entire journey is not found in fleeting moments of peace, but in a permanent reorientation of your life. It is to live from the answered prayer. This is a state of being where you no longer reach for God as a solution to your problems, but rather you recognize that the conscious awareness of God's presence is itself the only solution you will ever need. The prayer is not a request you make. It is a state of consciousness you inhabit. You are not waiting for your needs to be met. You are abiding in the presence that is the fulfillment of all need. The separate, needy self, with its long list of desires and fears, begins to recede, and what remains is a life lived from the divine center, a spontaneous expression of the peace, wisdom, and power that you have discovered within. Imagine two artists. The first artist is consumed with a desire for fame and recognition. He paints with an eye on the market, calculating what will sell, straining to create a masterpiece that will bring him the acclaim he craves. His studio is filled with tension and anxiety. Every brushstroke is weighed down by the burden of his future expectations. The second artist has fallen in love with the act of painting itself. He is consumed by the beauty of the colors, the flow of the pigment, the sheer joy of expression. He is not thinking of the finished product or the reaction it will receive. He is fully present, and his action is a pure, unburdened offering. His work flows from him effortlessly. and it often carries a vitality and authenticity that the first artist's work lacks. The first artist is living for the answered prayer, the external validation that never truly satisfies. The second artist is living from the answered prayer, the inner state of creative joy that is its own reward. Your life is meant to be this second artist's studio. This is how you engage with the world without being consumed by it. You will still perform the functions of your daily life. You will go to your job, manage your household, and interact with your family. But the center of gravity has shifted. Before, your job was the source of your identity and your security. Your actions were driven by the fear of losing it or the desire to advance within it. Now, your job becomes a location, a context, in which you practice the presence of the divine. Your work is no longer about proving your worth, but about expressing the qualities of the spirit that you are: intelligence, harmony, order, creativity. The pressure to succeed on the world's terms dissolves, replaced by a quiet commitment to express integrity and love in every task, no matter how small. The outcome is entrusted to the same unseen intelligence that governs the planets. This applies with piercing clarity to your relationships. The old way was to look to another person to complete you, to make you happy, to validate your existence. This is the source of all relational conflict, for it places an impossible burden on another human being. To live from the answered prayer in relationship is to first be so established in the inner kingdom of peace that you no longer need anything from the other person. You come to them not as a beggar seeking love, but as a king bestowing it. Your interactions are no longer transactions designed to get your needs met, but spontaneous expressions of the love that you already are. When a disagreement arises, you do not react from the fragile ego, but you can retreat to that inner stillness and respond from a place of wisdom that seeks understanding rather than victory. The relationship ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a sanctuary for mutual growth and expression. This is the great secret that has been waiting for you all along. The peace you sought through struggle, the security you tried to build through accumulation, the love you craved from others. These were all misplaced yearnings for the one thing that can only be found within. You are not a human being having occasional spiritual experiences. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. To live from the answered prayer is to fully embrace this truth. It is to let the divine current flow into every corner of your humanhood, transforming your work into worship, your relationships into communion, and your every action into a graceful, unburdened dance. The problems of the world do not vanish, but they can no longer touch the core of who you are. You move through the world, but you are no longer of it. You are in it, yet anchored in the eternal, living not for a future promise of happiness, but from the present and everlasting reality of the great fulfillment.